It's my pleasure to introduce Colin and Sarah from MSIP, who will be just giving us a little introduction into what the project is all about and what's going on up there at the Michelin Parc. And then, like I said, we'll take some questions afterwards and remind you that you can use the Q&A and the chat function to submit those. You can also raise a hand and ask a question with by voice if you prefer. But without further ado, we'll let Colin and Sarah do their presentations, and we'll join back afterwards for questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Alan. Hi everybody. If you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you can all see our first. Oops, I've done this wrong already. I'm going to try and minimize this. There we go. So hopefully you can all see the screen. Colin, give me a shout if it's not working.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay. Thank you everybody for joining this session. Thank you, Alan and ETP for inviting us to present. My name is Sarah Petrie. I am the Innovation Director for Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc, and myself and Colin, who is the Business Development Manager, are going to take you through our ideas and plans and ambitions for the Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc in Dundee. And the title of our talk is Keeping the End Goal in Sight, very much thinking about the drive to achieve net zero carbon emissions in Scotland by not too distant a time horizon, and how Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc is going to help contribute to that. So over to you, Bob. Bob, over to you, Colin.
Yeah, so a little bit of the background of how MSIP came into existence. So as a lot of people, you know, in Scotland, especially in Dundee, were aware, Michelin announced they were closing the tyre factory after well, been operational in Dundee since 1972. So nearly 50 years of presence in Dundee, and one of the largest private employer in the city as well. So quite a big blow to the time when this was announced. It was one of Michelin's best performing tyre factories, producing 1,000 tyres an hour. It was a 24/7 operation, and like I say, you know, a large employer with 800 to 1,000 employees on the site at any given time. It was like I say, it was a very high performance facility. They adopted CSR ethos, employee centric culture. Their quality levels were world class. So an excellent site with a high degree of skills on the site. Unfortunately, you know, the world's changing. Market changes meant a massive decline in the tyres that were produced on Dundee site. Michelin explored every possible avenue to try and keep the site open, but unfortunately came to the conclusion that it wasn't to be. So they announced that the site would close in November 2018, and 850 direct jobs were impacted. Tyre production ceased in June 2020. It was actually just a month or so before that decision was made to stop tyre production when obviously the pandemic hit. But the good news, over to Sarah.
Yeah, the good news very much, the phoenix from the fire. Michelin corporately, right up to their HQ level, alongside Dundee City Council and Scottish Enterprise, worked together in a very strong partnership to look at how to mitigate the economic impact of the closure, and came up with the idea of forming the Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc. So the idea being that the 32-hectare site in Dundee would be transformed into an innovation park for companies and academics, very much focused on sustainable mobility and low carbon energy. And the rationale for that was to maximise the strategic intent of all the partners. So Michelin's strategy is very much around helping people move in general. We all recognise the tyres that they make and recognise them for that. but they do an awful lot more than that, and they're very much, excuse the pun, but driven to helping people move. And obviously with the climate emergency being announced, the whole drive towards the low carbon agenda is very, very strong at the moment. So the niche around sustainable mobility and low carbon energy became the focus for MSIP. So the company itself was established in June 2019, and the first year of operations was effectively a group of individuals from the partner organisations contributing to developing the MSIP proposition. And as part of that, working very closely with Scottish Government, who recognised the importance of MSIP, certainly to the local and Scottish economies in its programme for government last year. And MSIP is very much a key priority for Scottish enterprise for the next 10 years, as it is for all the partners. So there is a 10-year commitment to supporting the delivery of Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc. And that is demonstrated through a funding package of £60 million, which has been announced, which incorporates a £30 million contribution from Michelin and a matching £30 million from Team Scotland. So with that on the table, we have a very strong foundation on which to build the innovation park and to drive the whole innovation agenda around sustainability and sustainable mobility and low carbon energy. So for those who don't know MSIP, or the Michelin site as it is a very large campus. It is 32 hectares, and we will be redeveloping that into a home for companies and academics operating in sustainable mobility and low carbon technologies, as we've said. The space itself is very flexible. There is a range of buildings available on site, some of which are in the process of being demolished at the moment to make space, and some of the facilities that Michelin had up to this point in time are probably not going to be much use to any other companies unless you're making tyres. So some of the site is being cleared, and the rest of it is available for companies to take space, and it goes right up to modern warehouses, which are state of the art, with the ability to put solar PV panels on the roof. So excellent infrastructure. Connectivity, being based in Dundee on the east coast of Scotland, we have great access to the road and rail network, as well as having a local airport. We're only an hour and a bit from Edinburgh Airport as well. And for companies locating at the park, if you come to the park as a small one-man band, you can grow your company to whatever size you wish, all at the same postcode. So you don't need to worry about some of the growing pains that companies can experience in having to move and relocate, and the impact that has on supply chain and staffing. We've got two lots of green energy here, apologies for that. So green energy on the site is supplied from a number of sources. We have 2 wind turbines on site, an energy from waste plant which provides heat and power, and the capacity to put a solar array on the roof of the large warehouse. So green energy is in abundant supply, and I think Colin will talk to that point later on. And alongside all of that, MSIP can offer a range of support packages, a mixture of grants, loans and incentives, as well as competitive rates for tenants on site. And that's through the network of partners that we are working with, including our shareholders in Scottish Enterprise and Dundee City Council. So alongside the space and the packages of support for companies, we are also looking to put together a skills academy, which will be delivered in partnership with Dundee and Angus College at the moment. And the aim is for them to provide access to their core technical skills. On site, they will be consolidating all of their core technical skills at the Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc, and we're looking to add to those capabilities through further partnerships with other colleges and universities and training providers, so that the workforce of the future can get access to the relevant skills on site. And companies on site can also get access to specific training packages that they might need. So having a skills academy just next door means that hopefully all companies can get sufficient access to their training requirements. In addition, part of my role is very much looking at the innovation space, and MSIP will provide the space and the expertise for companies and the support mechanisms required to help them innovate, prototype and manufacture on the park, and in partnership with others. We are looking to develop a new innovation hub building, which will provide a range of facilities for companies, including hot desking facilities, easy access in and out, and access to a suite of workshops and testing facilities, best-in-class testing facilities, including battery and fuel cell testing. And we've got some discussions ongoing about drivetrain testing facilities and various other facilities as well, which will be of use to the companies that we hope to get on site. Okay. Oh, can't get my slides to move. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Colin.
Yeah, so as you can see on the picture here, it's a very large site. It's 32 hectares, which Michelin has donated to MSIP. A lot of buildings, as you can see in the picture, and as well as that, interesting to note that there's a lot of green land around the buildings as well, and that's all part of the MSIP site. So once the buildings are filled with companies, we hope in the next few years, there's plans to do new build of different size buildings, from innovation hubs to manufacturing space. So plenty of capacity on the site for all the things that are planned to be done. So the key thing, and this was one of Michelin's biggest remits, was that they wanted to recreate the 850 jobs that were unfortunately lost with the tire factory closing. One bit of good news is that of the 150 Michelin jobs lost, there's only, I think the latest figure was about 50 or 60 people are actively looking for work from that workforce, which is an excellent result considering the current climate just now, and that's people finding other employment and early retirement. So that's good news. But nevertheless, the intention is still to try and create at least 800 to 850 jobs in this site, if not more. So just going through the kind of facilities that are going to be made available for the companies to become tenants. The main jobs are going to be created in the manufacturing sector. So the buildings that you see coloured in yellow, they're the large manufacturing areas that Michelin use for the bulk of their tyre production. The large buildings at the bottom of the picture are their very large warehouse facilities. So the intention is to have these tenants of large manufacturing companies. So these will tend to be companies that are established. They're either scaling up to volume manufacture, or they're actually companies that are actually doing volume manufacture. And again, we're speaking to quite a lot of companies who are very keen to move into the site. Some bring in 100 to 200 jobs, we hope. So that's the large yellow areas. The rest of the yellow areas, the ones you see in the middle of the picture there, they'll be divided up because some companies might not need a big space. So we're going to divide some of these other areas up into smaller units of 150 to 200 square meters, and that allows these companies that are small companies, growing companies. And again, the idea behind the site is that it's going to be very flexible. So companies come on site, they might double in size in 2 to 3 years, and we'd like to keep them on this site. So we're going to look at ways that we can configure it so that we can grow with the companies and give them additional space, or like I said a few minutes ago, new build, custom build for them, and they grow with the MSIP site. Sarah explained the skills academies. This is a very exciting development to have an actual skills academy on the site. And again, the building in purple, as you see there, that's already earmarked, and work is just away at the start in getting that Skills Academy into place. If it wasn't for the COVID-19, we would have had some students on site this current term, and we're still hoping to have some temporary accommodation for them at the turn of the year, and hopefully the Skills Academy be fully operational this time next year, we hope. So very excited, and again, this is going to be focusing very much on workshop activities, and it's going to be very much focused on courses that are attuned to the low carbon economy. And again, some of these courses don't exist now, and we're speaking closely to Dundee and Angus College to develop some of these courses. And again, we're looking for input from, especially the tenants that are going to come on site to tell us what skills they need for the future. And it's not just about, obviously it's very important to have the next generation of workers for the low carbon economy, but it's also to look at how we reskill the industries that are perhaps fading out, for instance, so oil and gas. So a very exciting development, having Skills Academy on the site, right adjacent to all the companies that are hopefully going to be working here. On a smaller scale, so we're kind of calling it accelerator labs. So these are the kind of companies that they're established, they're proper companies. They're maybe just still developing their product, maybe just starting to enter the marketplace. Tried and tested prototypes. So these companies are looking for flexible manufacturing space, workshop space. So again, similar to what I explained for the smaller manufacturing units, these will be very flexible spaces. Grow with the company. We'll be offering, tenancy agreements that kind of match their kind of growth pattern. And the idea is that if we help them get set up, get established, then hopefully they'll be moving into bigger premises and creating longer term permanent employment. Taking it a bit further back on the TRL MRL scale, we'll also be introducing what we're calling innovation hubs and labs. So again, these are for literally startup companies, and again, this is where there'll be a lot of synergy with our associates in the Eden campus in St Andrews, where two-person operations got one idea, they've done a prototype and they want to take it all the way. So again, these units will be flexible. We'll also tailor the tenancy agreement so that it matches project durations or prototype development stages. And again, the idea is that they stay on the campus and they continue up the stages. As well as that, there'll be we've had some companies that are speaking to us just now. They might just need a desk or a couple of desks just to really scope out their product development and their projects. So again, we'll be tailoring for that. We'll be creating a series of smaller kind of innovation hubs and office and workshops. And again, the idea behind that is that we encourage companies to come here right at the very beginning of their journey. And it's all about creating jobs, and even the MSIP team's now been created, fully functional, and the MSIP team's growing. For instance, the security team from Michelin has been taken on by MSIP. So MSIP themselves will create a decent amount of jobs, and we anticipate maybe 65, 70 jobs to be created, just maintaining and running the site and providing the services for the tenants that will hopefully be located here very soon. So large site, lots of potential, to fill the buildings that are already here, and fill the new buildings that we're going to be starting developing. Next slide, please. So again, Sarah talked about the green credentials of the site. So this site was very unique. Michelin had the intentions, and they put in the infrastructure before they made the announcement to close the site, that this was going to be the first tyre production facility in the world to be run entirely off grid. So that it would have been run a 24/7 operation, running entirely from green energy produced on site. So again, MSIP aren't going to waste that opportunity, and we're going to be building upon what Michelin had already started and invested heavily in. So everybody in Dundee, can see the two turbines. They've been on the skyline for well over 10 years. These are 2 times 2.1 megawatt wind turbines. We are going to slightly rewire these, and they're going to be used primarily for hydrogen production. The steam to heat site, the incinerator, which is going through its final commissioning phase, that you can see, if you can maybe just see in the back of the top of the picture, there's a kind of pipeline coming from the incinerator across the site. Now, Michelin, we're going to use the steam from the incinerator to drive the production of tyres. Now, we're going to reconfigure it slightly. We'll still be potentially using some of that steam first. There's some companies that might utilise that steam for their production facilities, but primarily it's going to be reconfigured, and we'll just slightly break into that pipeline that you see, and we'll be heating up the entire site from the steam from the waste plant. So as well as like up to 70 megawatt of steam, it's also going to be able to produce electricity as well, which again will be utilised on the site. And again, MVV are working very closely with the MSIP team to reconfigure what Michelin had already started. The large buildings at the front, Sarah mentioned that these are all, Michelin designed these to be taking a full 1 megawatt solar array. So again, MSIP fully intend to carry that out in the next 2-3 years. So there'll be a large solar array on top of this building. Again, that might be used to support the tenants, or it might even be devoted, used for hydrogen production as well. All new builds. You can see the large area in the middle. I mean, right now, the green area right in the middle of the site, that's the boiler house. The demolition team arrived this morning, actually, and they're away to start demolishing that site. So the middle of the site will be new build. The north end of the site will be new build as well. So all these buildings will be designed efficiently, obviously, well insulated, and they'll also be designed to take smaller solar arrays to increase that 1 megawatt that's already planned for the bottom side. So you can see, if you add up those numbers, there's a substantial amount of green energy production on this site, all to the benefit of the tenants that are going to be on here. So it'll provide green credentials for energy use, but the other aspect of it will be that green energy will be used for innovation, demonstration and testing new technology, as well as the day-to-day energy. Okay, next slide, please. And again, just the interest in MSIP. I mean, it's kind of blown us away with the amount of interest. I mean, it was a bit of a worry, obviously, as everybody's facing the pandemic that's happening, but there's still a lot of interest, and that augurs well for the future. So we've got 3 companies already announced. We've got MEP Technologies, who are a Dundee up-and-coming lithium and sodium-ion battery company. So we're hoping to get them on site this side of Christmas, a start of operation. I've got a US-based company who work very closely with St Andrews, the St Andrews team, Lerg. They're obviously restricted getting across to the UK just now, but they're fully intend to be on site this time next year, perhaps. We've also got Arcola, again, work very closely with our friends in St Andrews. We're also committed to come on the site. We've got another 2 companies that we're hoping to have on site within the next 2 months as well. So hopefully in the next few months, it won't just be plans and PowerPoint slides. We'll actually have working companies employing people here on the site while we're renovating and new building. We've got a pipeline. There's been well over 100, nearly 150 inquiries over the last year of companies looking to come onto the site. We are applying the remit that they must be involved in low carbon and sustainable mobility. And we've kind of whittled down those inquiries to over 60 who tick that kind of box. And these range from companies that are involved in hydrogen, batteries, lithium cell manufacture, and a lot of the associated technologies that go along with those technologies. Companies that are looking at, the testing of products, solar, onshore, wind, renewable. So a whole range of companies we're looking to come on this site. So as well as the companies that are developing the technology, we're also interested in looking at the supply chain. The supply chain is as critical as those companies, manufacturing the products. So again, we're looking at the whole supply chain, right down to the raw material side as well. So if they're not located on the site, on MSIP itself, then we're still interested, because our partners in Dundee City Council or other parts of Scotland could maybe attract, especially those companies that are looking to come into Scotland. So lots of interest. Hopefully in the next few months, we'll actually have companies on site, and over the next 2 or 3 years, we're hoping to fill up the site.
Okay, thanks, Colin. I just wanted to talk briefly on the kind of innovation agenda alongside MSIP. So for those of you who are in the know, and I know there's a few of you had registered, we are aiming to build MSIP as a centre of excellence in sustainable mobility and low carbon energy. And in order to achieve that, we're looking to build partnerships and relationships with companies and universities that can support the growth of those sectors at the site. So we have announced a partnership, as Colin's mentioned, with the University of St Andrews. We also have one with the University of Dundee, and we have very productive conversations and discussions with them about where the opportunity for collaboration might sit. Obviously, until we have some companies on the park, there's probably a limit to what we can do in the near term, but some of those companies are starting to develop their plans to locate on the park, hopefully in the very near future. As Colin said, maybe even before Christmas, which would be great. So as part of that Centre for Excellence, we're looking to build collaborative partnerships and groups of companies that have particular interests in particular areas. So we can look at supporting those companies in submitting applications for funding to support their innovation activities. We can build new technologies and support the growth of the sector as a whole. The idea of attracting innovative companies to locate at MSIP, I think, is also driven by many of those companies' ability to partner with other companies on the park and with some of the university partners that we're hoping to get on board. Part of the whole innovation agenda is also to enhance company retention. So recognising that some of these companies will have products that are going through the product development process at the moment, hopefully reaching market in the near future. Where are their next products going to come from, and where are their interests, and how can we help support them to build into a larger, more sustainable organisation? So access to business and innovation support is going to be critical to that, and we're hoping to be able to tap into the networks through Scottish Enterprise and Dundee City Council and other partners to provide companies with that support. And we have touched on the Skills Academy already, looking at the provision of future skills to support the sustainable mobility agenda and also the low carbon energy piece, but also looking at training requirements for companies today and linking those into the Skills Academy. We also have the opportunity to link in with other organisations across the UK and Scotland, which is why events such as this are really interesting, because we want to build those networks and partnerships in order to deliver not just the skills and training side of things, but also the innovation and collaboration agenda. So links back to the National Manufacturing Institute, for example, is going to be really important to support companies with their manufacturing activities, as well as links into Innovate UK and other partners for the funding side of things. So we have a wee video that I'm going to try and share. Bear with me. I'm hoping this is going to work and I'll get it up on the right screen. Now, where's it going? It's hidden. Let me know if this is playing okay.
Yep, all good.
Hey.
Sarah, you're still muted.
Sorry. Thank you for that. So that was a quick kind of run through of the physical facilities on site in the video, and you can view that on the YouTube channel at any point. But for now, I think I'd just like to say thank you, and very happy to take any questions that may have come up during the presentation.
Right, thanks Sarah and Colin for the presentation. That was very good. Got us to think a bit. We've got a few questions already lined up. One from our faithful questionnaire, Mark Filton, but we'll go first to our Q&A question from Philip Oliver, who's asking maybe to have a better understanding of the breakdown of how the funds will be spent. What are they designed to fund, and what is the plan to grow and top up? I think you gave a reasonable 10-year overview. Is there any plan for what happens after that, for instance?
Okay, feel free to chip in, Colin, on this one. So the business plan for MSIP is a 10-year business plan. The funding at the moment is to deliver MSIP to the point of break even, hopefully by year 10. So as you can see from the video and from the slides that Colin talked to, the site is a substantial site. There are a large number of very large buildings on site, and it has been operating as a Michelin site since 1972, I think it is. So some of the buildings date back to that time. There is some work to be done to redevelop the site to make it suitable for multi-user occupancy. So basically subdividing some buildings, putting in new access and exit facilities, and redesigning the kind of service network to accommodate that. So Michelin had a flow from one part of the site right the way through the buildings until the tyres went out the back door. That's not going to work for a site that will be a location for a mix of a different number of different types of companies. So we need to make sure that that subdivision is done appropriately. We're also looking at building the Innovation Hub building, which will be a new building on site and will provide companies and partners with access to hot desking space. There will be some workshop facilities available, and we are also looking at what kind of core facilities might be required by the companies that would locate on site, such as the kind of battery testing facility that we spoke about. So the funding is very much directed at the capital programme of works and running MSIP as a business until the point in time that the income from the tenants allows the company to break even. We are looking to top that up through additional project-based funding. So if we have a collaborative partnership to deliver something on site with a variety of partners, then we would look to leverage as much partner funding in on the back of that as possible. So that's the kind of plan for the medium to long term, out to 10 years. Beyond that, we hope that MSIP will obviously be a success by that point. We'll be generating enough revenues to make it a profitable business as a kind of a landlord type company. But similarly, we want to make sure that the innovation agenda is still very active, and we'll be looking at ways of funding that activity in whatever environment is the right environment in 10 years' time.
Okay. Any additions from Colin or?
Yeah, well, yeah, just, you know, Sarah summed up really well there. I mean, just to emphasise the, you know, ultimately MSIP will be functioning as a kind of commercial landlord, although we'll be doing, you know, other activities, you know, the innovation and, you know, facilitating, you know, projects of that type. One key point to make is that we are, in essence, a commercial landlord, so we're not allowed to undercut, you know, other sites around the city or in Scotland. So our rents will be, you know, competitively priced. We won't be, you know, given, you know, cut price, because, like I say, that wouldn't be fair. So those competitive rates, we will be looking at flexible arrangements and incentives, especially for new startup companies. But yes, ultimately, hopefully the company manages to wipe its own face and sustain itself.
Okay. So let's move on to the first question from Mark. He was talking about the Skills Academy at first. So are you going to focus, he's wondering whether or not you're going to focus on the more regional, national, UK-wide, or international potentially requirements for the skills training?
Well, yes. I mean, the Skills Academy, like we mentioned in the talk, is a key addition to the site. So it will be looking at all aspects of training. So that'll be local as well as international. So if companies come in from around the globe, come to this company, bringing in new industry, new techniques, and obviously the skills need to match that. So the idea is that we'll try and identify. We're already speaking to some of these companies already. They're already giving us their opinions of the skills that they're finding difficult to recruit. We're passing it on to our colleagues in Dundee and Angus Council, and the intention is to try and develop courses, practical skills that match the skill shortage. So the answer is that companies will tell us what skills they need, and we'll attempt to create courses ahead of when they need them. That's the ultimate goal, and all that work has already started.
Okay, so that answers a bit the other side of the question as well, which is, who are you working with primarily to develop, almost like kind of a skills curriculum, if you like? Yes. It sounds like you're interacting a lot with companies and more on a demand basis, but are you working with the likes of Skills Development Scotland or initiatives like those?
Yeah, so the Skills Academy, I guess, is going to have a couple of phases to it. The first phase is very much looking at consolidating the core technical capabilities from Dundee and Angus College at MSIP. So it will be probably more locally focused or regionally focused skills that we're looking at there. And the activities for the Skills Academy are very much being supported and driven by a group involving Dundee and Angus College, MSIP and Skills Development Scotland. What we would like to see as a further phase of the development of the Skills Academy is links into the companies, as Colin's already touched on, but links into other colleges and also universities to understand what other offerings they might have that would be of benefit to the companies and the sector around MSIP, and making sure that the company requirements are being articulated clearly enough for those skills to be or skills requirements to be the subject of future courses and development of those courses, so that they're there ready for the companies when they need them. So through the colleges, we're hoping to kind of look at the core skills, and by bringing in the universities, look at the kind of higher level skills, the graduate apprenticeships and things like that, so that we're not just looking at the core skills, but we're looking right the way across the piece and CPD as well.
Yeah, so as an example, one of the companies, it's in the public domain, that the company I work for, Petrie, who are based up in Thurso, they've chosen Dundee as a preferred site. Fingers crossed they make the decision that they'll locate in Dundee. But one of the things that they've been, voicing very, loudly is that there isn't enough skills to man a lithium cell gigafactory. So those skills are going to have to be created. So over the last year, there has been discussions about, well, let's try and describe what those skills are. So what skills do apprentices or reskilled oil and gas workers need to be able to make lithium cells? Mm-hmm. It sounds easy, but it's a bit difficult, because you want to put those skills into place ahead of when you need them. So that's the kind of discussions are going. So that's just for lithium cells. So when you think about it, if you're going to be, having hydrogen fuel cell manufacture, again, you need to determine what those skills are break it down, and then design courses around it. So these are the kind of early discussions that are taking place. And I think one thing that hopefully MSIP are helping to facilitate is that we're crossing that divide and speaking directly to the companies themselves, who are the people that are expressing the dire shortage of some of these skills.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. I mean, it's one of the things that Skills Development Scotland and colleges are looking at, is that the skills required are not the skills of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much the skills of tomorrow, and
Exactly.
a lot of this still needs to be developed and actually from scratch.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll move on to another question from Mark again, and then I'll probably skip his next question and come back to him to give the floor to somebody else who asked the question as well. So the next question for Mark is: have you had any thoughts on linking the site generated green energy? It sounded like you wanted is it a net zero site that you're after? But how are you planning on? Are you planning on linking that with vertical farming technologies, which obviously the people at Chapel Cross would be more than happy to help with that,
Mm-hmm.
and to create a collaboration in that sense?
Well, there has been discussion. Vertical farming is obviously a very exciting, industry. The one thing we'd say about that is that the kind of, when you've got the vertical farms in place, and again, there is space on this site, one issue is that it doesn't create a lot of jobs per, square meter. So one of the key remits of this site is that we want to create as many jobs as we possibly can. So the actual implementation of vertical farming might be better, served, in sites maybe a bit further afield. But in saying that, again, around this area, there's a lot of companies involved in the technology to support vertical farming, and we are speaking to some of those companies. So the answer is, we'd like MSIP to be more job intense. Like I say, we actually do look at jobs per square meter. So it's more the technology around the vertical farming as opposed to the actual operational aspects of vertical farming. That might be better located, maybe outside the city, if you know what I mean.
I guess maybe the other aspect to that is we do have good linkages with the James Hutton Institute and their interests in vertical farming. So in the spirit of partnership, we're happy to facilitate any conversations around that particular agenda that might be of benefit if you don't already have those links, which I'm sure you probably do, but just putting that out there.
Okay, so if you see the chat, you'll see some comments from Mark on response to the questions. I'll just leave that between yourselves.
Okay.
I'll move on to the question by Ian Hill, and then I'll go back to Mark's final question. So Ian was saying that it's really exciting stuff, and it helps to position that part of Scotland. So that area, including what's happening in St Andrews, which we obviously touched upon in our first seminar on this series. And it's a go-to place for low carbon tech, and that's great. He was wondering whether or not the message is getting through at a national level, and what else can be done to promote effectively this key area in Scotland, or even just this key aspect of what Scotland is providing in terms of the low carbon technology and innovation.
Mm-hmm. Good question, Ian, and apologies I didn't use your slide. I did put it in there in an earlier version of the presentation. So I think that's a really good question, and it's certainly one of the topics of discussion between MSIP and St Andrews. Probably a really hard one to answer just now, but I think part of what we need to do is actually see things starting to come through into delivery and demonstrating the impact that the delivery of those projects can have. So MSIP is very much at the early stages, and we don't have any tenants on site as yet, as we've touched on. We do hope that we're going to get some in the very near future, actually setting up and operating facilities. And I think once we have a better picture of who those companies are and where the partnerships are going to come from to deliver, those companies, then I think the interest from the powers that be will start to really kind of ramp up. So I think we need to see kind of real on the ground action, would be my take on that.
Okay.
Happy if anyone's got any other thoughts.
Okay, well, that's good for me. Let's move on to Mark's last question. He was wondering how supportive is the local council, and does MSIP have a named council members as a champion, and if they're adding tangible stakeholder value to your project. There's a small comment in the Q&A from Ola Kelly, which is that Dundee, it sounds that's coming from Dundee Council. Dundee is excited to work with MSIP, so and to collaborate with them.
Yeah, we're working closely with St Andrews and Dundee universities, and actually had a conversation with Orla this morning, so she knows we were going to be on this call this afternoon. As far as Dundee City Council is concerned, they are a 1/3 shareholder in Michelin-Scotland Innovation Parc, so they are very actively involved and very actively supporting MSIP. We are looking at putting in place some kind of development framework for the redevelopment of the site, just to make that process as painless as possible. But we are also working in partnership with them on a number of projects as well. So the hydrogen production facility on site is actually a Dundee City Council project, and they're working very closely with us to locate that on the park and to link that into the wind turbines on the park to make sure that that hydrogen that's produced is truly green hydrogen. Michelin historically had a very good relationship with the City Council and local councillors, and because many of their staff came from the adjoining counties, they also had a very good relationship with those local authorities as well. So much so that a lot of the coronavirus and the COVID-19 response has actually been based out of the Michelin site. So their PPE distribution hub is based at MSIP. So there's a lot of supportive work going on between the partners in both directions, I think it's fair to say, and we're very lucky in that respect, and hope it continues for the future.
Yeah, and adding to that, I mean, again from a business development perspective, working very closely with our colleagues in Dundee City Council. So for instance, I mentioned there we've got quite a long list of inquiries coming into the site. Some of them don't quite fit the criteria, but nevertheless they're companies that are looking to locate or grow in the area. So where they don't fit our remit, we don't just say, well, sorry, no, you don't fit MSIP. We kind of work with Dundee City Council and pass these companies on to our colleagues there, and they might find alternative premises elsewhere in the city. They still create jobs, so they're still, welcome to set up in the area. As well as that, we're tapping into, the offshore wind development in Dundee is extremely exciting. The plans that Forth Ports have for the dock area is fantastic as well. So again, I've been speaking to a lot of these contacts, and again tapping into the supply chain. Offshore wind's going to bring a lot of new companies into the area from other parts of the country and internationally. Some of those companies might not want to locate down in the docks. They fit the criteria for MSIP, so again we might be able to provide a home up here. And again, it's connecting these companies together as well. So it's not just about giving them a tenancy, it's also about introducing them to other companies to help them expand their business. And if they expand their business, they create more jobs.
Yep.
I think linking up to this question, I'll get on to Philip Oliver's question afterwards, but the one by Martin McCormick seems to be very pertinent to the continuation of this conversation, saying how hands-on are Michelin as a company in this particular project?
So I think it's fair to say that without Michelin's involvement, MSIP wouldn't be, maybe for the wrong reasons initially, but they are absolutely 100% behind the delivery of MSIP. A number of the core staff over the past year or so came from Michelin. So John Reid, who was the site director, was interim CEO for MSIP for the past year. And our Chief Operations Officer, Colin, moved voluntarily from Michelin to MSIP, very much driven by the ambition of what we're trying to achieve. They remain hands-on through their role in the board. They are also very supportive of our plans for building collaborative partnerships, and are helping by providing access to their networks internally within Michelin and more broadly as well to support the delivery of MSIP. So we couldn't do it without Michelin's support, and actually having Michelin as part of the name is something that we all recognise that brings a very real value to it.
Yeah, and the legacy, one of the legacies Michelin wanted to leave, I mean, the Skills Academy being on site is very much part of Michelin's ethos they've had from on the site right from the outset, 1972, with their apprenticeship program. So again, Michelin had a lot of input into ensuring that the Skills Academy will be something unique and for the future. So again, that's a lot of credit to Michelin for making sure that that came into place.
Okay, so we'll move on to Philip's question. So you're saying several leading think tanks like McKinsey describe innovation and creative thinking as one of the top skills of the 21st century. How do you see the development of innovation skills themselves fitting into the Skills Academy, and might it be something you offer separately? So I guess in difference to working skills and manufacturing skills versus innovation skills.
I think that's another really good question, and one we probably, hands up, haven't tackled yet, but is almost certainly going to be something we're going to have to look at. The core thrust of MSIP's Skills Academy at the moment is to deliver the key technical skills and competences required to support the companies in delivering their products at this point in time. And as part of that, Michelin are contributing their lean processes as well, recognizing that there's a strong value in bringing those into the Skills Academy as well. In terms of the innovation and creative thinking, that I think is going to be one that we look at for a later phase, and is almost certainly one that Michelin is going to be really interested in. As Colin's indicated, they have a real keen interest in the Skills Academy and how that can be used to support not just the innovation piece and not just the kind of core skills, but the wider kind of innovation agenda as a whole. So we will have to think about that, but hands up, we haven't done that as yet.
And some of that creative thinking, again, Sarah's right. I mean, that's something that's very exciting that we would like to look at a later stage, but some of that creative thinking will naturally evolve. If you think about it, some of the companies that are already committed to come to the site, we're having, established, volume manufacturers, product, validation companies coming on site alongside two-person operations that have got an idea and they've made one prototype. So they're going to be walking through the same gate, located, within 30 seconds of each other. So again, we're already, as well as companies talking to us about looking at potential space on the site. I find I'm getting a lot of people wanting to be introduced to some of these other companies. So to expand their business, but also just to learn from each other. Whether that's a company doing a prototype that wants to scale it up and they don't know how, or an established company looking for their next new product or idea. So I think some of that creative thinking will naturally evolve, and it's up to like Sarah and the rest of the team to try and facilitate that and promote it further.
Yeah, I guess it's usually like this, and some of that will come down to how MSIP manages the culture within the site as
Yes.
well, for putting right people next to each other and making sure that there's ways of communicating between these different companies and the like.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the time now. We've exhausted our hour, so I think there's no further questions on the Q&A and the chat. But I just want to thank you guys again for this great presentation and for willing to take on the questions. Thank you to Colin, to Sarah, and to MSIP. Well, thank you from ScotCHEM and ETP who organised this session, and we also welcome you to come into the next session next Tuesday. And if you want to have any further contacts with Colin and Sarah, feel free to contact ourselves, and we'll put you in contact at a later time.
I was going to say, happy to take any further questions or contacts directly. That's not a problem. Always happy to have a conversation.
It sounds like you guys have still got a bit of hand to get your HMO license sorted out. So thank you again, and have a